You're listening to the Lawyers with Purpose Practice Success Podcast, hosted by Lisa Rozier, featuring attorney Dave Zampano, along with frequent guests. Whether you're a seasoned estate planning attorney, an attorney looking to add estate planning and elder law to your existing list of practice areas, or you're just starting out, this podcast will give you a solid plan for success. Listen now as Dave and his guests share their personal journeys to practice success and the insights they learned along the way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Practice Success Podcast. I am Lisa Rozier, joined with Dave Zampano, and our special guest today is attorney Dinesh Chawla, and he is from New Baltimore, Michigan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yes, absolutely. So Dinesh, as you know, at the Practice Success Podcast, we love to get input from fellow attorneys and hear about their stories, their successes, if you ever hit rock bottom and rebounded, and curious to see your journey right out of law school, how you got to the area of law that you're practicing now. So, Dave, if you have anything else that you want to chime into.
Yeah, I want to welcome Dinesh. It's good to see you.
Good to see you again.
Privileged to see you in person last week, so that was great.
Mm-hmm.
What's your story? I mean, the practice of law, what do you see as relevant that got you where you are? Because remember, our listeners are people trying to figure it out. Like, what everybody's looking for a magic bullet, and I don't know that you have any magic bullets, because everyone I've ever talked to that's making it, it's never a magic bullet. It's a series of behaviors and habits. So we like to discover the behaviors and habits that you have anchored to bring some of your success.
So, I'll add to that, mindset. Behaviors, habits, and mindset are crucial, because I think that even with some behaviors and habits, if your mindset's not there, I think that's really what pushes me through everything is my mindset. My behaviors and habits sometimes go to the wayside, but if my mindset's not there, everything just falls. So that to me is a big thing. And that's something I recently discovered. So the keynote speaker we had at this year's taper couldn't have come at a better time. Like it really hit home for me, because it's something I just went through. So it was amazing.
What stood out from the keynote that you went through that resonated? Because that's your part of your story, it sounds like.
So let me start from the beginning, and you can figure out how it resonates. And I'll point out how it resonates throughout.
Okay.
So after I graduated from undergrad, I was burnt out. I was not ready to go back to school. I wanted to be an adult for a little while. So I moved to Chicago, and I started doing sales and marketing work for an automotive supplier. So I moved from Detroit to Chicago to work in the auto industry. In that, one of my biggest clients was Ford Motor Company. And that was not a transactional thing. That was a relationship sales. So I had to have a relationship with Ford. And then when I decided to move from Chicago back to Detroit, I was working another sales job with another automotive supplier. And once again, my major customer was with Ford. So I was able to lean on those relationships to every time my sales pipeline was down at the end of the month, I could call somebody at Ford, or I could call somebody at Mack Trucks and say, hey, you guys need these reports, right? And they're like, yeah, of course we do. How many do we need to order? So that relationship helped me with a lot of things. And I learned relationships are key to everything. So fast forward, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I wanted to move into a management role. I wasn't getting the positions that I applied for. And the reason that I got from all of the hiring managers were all of your competitors either had or were going for their MBAs. So my thought was, if everybody's going for it or has it, what's going to make me stand out? So I'm going to go for my JD. Most of what I'm doing is negotiating contracts with my customers. So why not learn that a little bit more and have the edge there? It gives me more opportunity having that degree and that level of thinking. So I went to law school. When I came out, my intention was to just use it in business. Unfortunately, I came out in 2009. Business wasn't so hot in 2009.
Nope.
Major law firms and even boutique law firms weren't hiring unless you could either bring a book of business or graduated top 10 in your class. I was Heinz 57 in my class. I graduated 57. So I was not getting those jobs. So I started Chawla Legal at that point, not knowing what I was going to do. So I was just going everywhere saying, yeah, I'm a lawyer. Here's my card. Yeah, I'm a lawyer. Here's my card. Yeah, I'm a lawyer. Here's my card. Hoping business would come in and I would take on anything I possibly could. That wasn't happening. And my friend called me from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. He said, I'm in the Medicare compliance department. I just got a promotion. We're hiring a senior analyst. My boss says you're a shoo-in if you interview. So I got a job there. Through circumstances, I wound up managing the group within a year and a half. And I left Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan in 2014 to work for another company in healthcare. And I wound up starting a healthcare compliance consulting company.
Woo, there you go.
Because I realized that I wasn't getting my full worth, my full value, and my ideas weren't being taken into consideration when I had the red tape of corporate behind me. So if I did my own thing and I came in as a consultant, everybody listens to the consultant. So I did that for a little while. And then in 2017, there was a huge shift for me. And this is where the moment was, Dave. My dad came to me and said, hey, when should I get my estate plan reviewed? I said, well, when was the last time you had it looked at? He said, in 2003, when the lady handed it to me. I said, well, okay, Dad, it's 2017. Now, I'm no estate planning attorney, but I learned in law school that at least every 6 years you should get it checked because of administrative changes and law changes and all this stuff. And coming from a sales background, a consultative and relationship sales background, sorry for the language, but it pissed me off that one of my colleagues treated my hero, my father, like a transaction.
Right.
And that would have impacted my dad, my mom, my sister, myself, our kids, everybody in the family. And that really bothered me. So I didn't want that to happen again. And I was trying to figure out who to take my dad to make sure that that wouldn't happen again. So I was researching estate planning attorneys throughout our area. And I came across Mike Rutkowski, and I talked to him for a little while, and he mentioned Lawyers with Purpose. So I looked it up. And at the time I was doing a consulting job at Capital Blue Cross in Pennsylvania. So I started looking up people in the directory, and I called Jeff Belomo because he was in York. And if that wasn't the most perfect person to talk to as a first-time person researching Lawyers with Purpose, because Jeff got on the call with me, I was expecting a 15-minute just overview. Jeff talked to me for almost an hour and a half about his story and how impactful it was on him. So I was like, I got to do this. I'm going to do this. So I went in. Mike allowed me to follow my dad through the whole process. I loved everything about it. I loved how client focused they were. I loved how everything was a relationship. They had their annual reviews and everything. So my dad wasn't going to get left in the lurch if his life changed. And when my mom passed away in 2019, all the changes that needed to be made, my dad didn't even have to proactively approach the attorney. The attorney called for the annual review in January. And my dad said, hey, my wife recently died. Boom, everything was taken care of. So that relationship, that outreach, that proactive communication meant a lot. Yeah. And again, I was already about a year and a half into Lawyers with Purpose, but just seeing that meant a lot. And that's something I wanted to do. I didn't want to be, the transactional attorney.
So there's an old saying, I think Gandhi said, be the change you want in the world. And it sounds like you experienced firsthand what a particular model delivered, and you had affinity toward it. You're like, okay, correct. This is really interesting. Okay, so then correct. What happened?
So 2019, the day after Christmas, my mom passed away. And I'm sorry, I still get a little emotional about it, but my mom passed away. And then obviously March of 2020, everything shut down because of COVID. June of 2020, I filed for divorce. My ex and I get along great. So everybody out there, don't think that it was bitter or anything like that. There were some bad times, but there was a lot of things that happened between 2019 and 2022 that really shifted my mindset on things. And I realized that in order for me to have positive outcomes in life, I had to surround myself with more positivity and more positive people. And I just started following signs. Like every positive sign I saw, or if I was thinking something, and then Debbie, for instance, our client service coordinator, or legal administrator, she came in through a workshop. My financial advisor friend brought her in as a client to the workshop. Debbie was in a vision meeting, and I asked, what's going on? She's like, well, I take care of my mom who has Alzheimer's. And I said, okay. And she said, so I'm only and I'm laid off. I said, well, what do you do for work? She said, I'm an administrative assistant. I said, wow, I'm looking for one of those. So it was like something in the universe presented Debbie to me. So I followed that sign, we hired her, and we're perfectly happy with her. So that's what I mean by I've been following signs. If I have a gut feeling about it, I've been going with my gut.
Well, it sounds to me like awareness, that there's a sense of awareness instead of just wandering through life. You're aware of circumstances and people that share. I'm confident that Debbie, you wouldn't even have that thought if Debbie didn't emulate your core values.
My core values, exactly.
That you saw things in Debbie. Yeah. Are you paying attention to those things?
And I got involved with this because of my dad. Debbie is now involved with this because of her experience with her mother, because she takes care of her mom who has Alzheimer's. That's what we were there talking about.
Yeah. So there's a commonality, and you found, and that passion and compassion around it were those joining things that made sense.
Exactly. And so where the mindset piece comes in is I was all these positive nuggets, all these positive things that people were saying to me. I tried to keep those people around me. And what I realized was a lot of people, when I would say, hey, I want to do this, I noticed some people were in the camp of saying, here's why this won't work. Some people were in the camp of saying, how can I help you? I kept the people who were saying, how can I help you? And I discarded the people who were saying, here's why this won't work, or this can't work and here's why. So we have 4 words next to our workstations, and I'm pointing to my sign of 4 words. They're positivity, motivation, execution, and intentionality. So those are the 4 things that we want to live by. We want to make sure that we're staying positive. We want to make sure that we're staying motivated, and that we're executing on our ideas, and that we're being intentional with our time, our resources, just everything we have. So
not just talking the talk, but actually fulfilling it, like being that attorney that follows up with clients that you experience with your own dad.
Correct. And to circle back on how all of this comes together with our keynote speaker this year is when it came to leaving the comfort of Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, or I'm sorry, when it came to leaving the comfort of my sales job because I wasn't getting that fulfillment that I wanted with that promotion, I leaned into law school. That was a scary challenge. I leaned into it. Coming out of law school, the economy was crappy. Yeah. I figured out a way. I leaned into it. I sat at the front of the boat, and I almost steered us towards the rocks on purpose just to lean into that challenge. The obstacles that I face in life, I've always been able to get through. And the key thing there has always been my mindset. And the people around me help me with my mindset. And that's the reason I still get crushed with my mom, is she was one of the guiding forces in my life. And this was the hardest period of time I've ever been through without her there. But I'm still here and smiling. So that in and of itself is my success story.
Well, on a flip note, I would challenge you that she was here more than ever. Right?
I would agree.
Because again, and then this goes to the business we're in, right? Estate planning. One of the things I always share with people is the only thing that makes people die is you. Their physically body dies, but I find they become more alive sometimes after they're gone physically. And it sounds like your mom's had a strong influence since she's been gone.
Yeah.
And that really relates to kind of what this area of law is, the estate planning practice. So I love this. I love how you talked about leaning in, because the keynote speaker was talking about whitewater rafting, and to get through the rough rapids, you got to lean in with the other folks on the boat and to get through those. And so for you, I love this concept. So for you, if you had to think about the things that created your success, it's really about 2 things I'm hearing. One is knowing who you are and what you want, and then finding the people that believe or can become facilitators of that. And not naysayers, right? Because everyone in the world, how many people we go and their number one answer, no, can't, all those words that make my hair stand up.
Right.
But that's it. That's what you talk about, mindset. And I love the other thing. And again, I don't think that anybody gets the credit for this. I think it's been in many books, but right, you become the sum total of the 6 people you spend the most time with. So if you spend the most time with people who are negative and down, excuse me, and who are always finding the problems and things, that's what you're going to find in life. If you're around the people, how can we? And even saying the language, by the way, a little tip I've learned over the years, and there's a lot of science to support this. When someone says can't, you can totally demolish can't with a simple comeback phrase. Well, how could we? And it actually changes the chemicals in the brain in that moment from fight or flight, which is can't, to strategy and success. So kind of those things of, well, if we had to, how could, well, yeah, it just changes and really takes the legs out from underneath of a can't or no.
One of my, I'm sorry to interrupt, but one of my old VPs of sales said, there's no such thing as can't, it's we choose not to. So if you're choosing not to, that's great, but we're choosing to move in this direction. So how are you going to help us do that? So that was his whole thing, is never say you can't do it. Just be honest and say, I choose not to participate in this. Like,
yeah, it's
my mindset
I love that.
there.
It's a choice.
I'm not on board. I'm not on board. I don't choose to participate in this.
Yeah. You know, I want to kind of pick out something else you said. And again, only because I'm a little less hairy-fairy and a little more concrete, right? So you made this comment, you know, I pay attention to what's right in front of me, and, you know, Debbie was right in front of me. And I'm not a big believer in fairy tales. Debbie was right in front of you because you had the eyes to see Debbie, right? And so it's kind of where we stand, we see life through our own lenses, right? Where we are, the world is. Isn't that true? You know, when we look at the world as a challenge, then everything around us seems to be a challenge. If we look at the world as possibility, then everything around us seems to be possibility. And what I think you've exhibited here, Dinesh, is something that I love, which is appreciation. Being present to acknowledge what's around us. I remember one day watching a butterfly, and it sounds crazy. And then a second butterfly came that looked nothing like the first butterfly. And I was watching these two butterflies, and they were having an amazing life in this crazy butterfly thing. And you say, what the hell does this have to do with anything? And what it has to do with for me is what are we doing to pay attention to the beauty all around us in people, right? And opportunities. And I think seeing the good in people, where there is good, is a huge opportunity for good everywhere. It multiplies, doesn't it? Yeah. Seeing the challenges in everything and everyone tends to give us more challenges. And you sound like you've had a very challenging couple of years, from starting from the loss of your mom and your divorce. And again, even when you talked about your divorce, you talked about the positive aspects of it, right? So it's an inclination of your mindset, which I think is where you started. So Dinesh, the listeners, as we wrap, you know, there's some having a challenging day. There's some having an awesome day. There's some wondering what area of practice of law they should get into. There's some wondering, you know, where does the journey start, begin, or end? You know, as you look back and you think about your journey and where you are on it, what are you saying to those folks?
It is the most simple advice in the world. And this is I had that question for somebody else in my personal life. I said, I'm at a loss right now. I'm completely lost. I don't know whether to go north, south, east, west, left, right. I don't know where to go. And her advice was amazing. You know what she said? Take one step forward and then keep going from there. So just take a step forward and keep moving from there. Just keep going forward.
And I think you would add and go toward the positive.
Yeah.
You know, don't go toward the no. You said you got two camps. The people are the no's and the people's how can we. So take a step positive toward the next how can we person or the next how can we in your life.
So take a step towards the light.
Yeah.
Not that light, not the probate light.
No, right.
Not that light. Don't follow that light.
No, that's funny. It's in a manageable way, right? In a manageable way.
Yes, in a very manageable way. The other thing I learned really quick is don't make mountains where there's molehills, and where there are mountains, turn them into molehills. You don't have to conquer everything at once.
Yeah.
It's one step at a time, right?
Absolutely.
People who climb Mount Everest don't get there in one step. It's one step after the other.
No, they don't. So Dinesh, Your law firm website is what?
www.chawlalegal.com, and it's CHAWLALEGAL.com. And we do, and this isn't a promotion, this is something I'm proud of. We do have the Guider badge on there.
Oh, yes.
Oh, cool.
So,
Awesome.
So if anybody's in Michigan, they can do their online legal documents with your
They
firm.
certainly can. Yeah.
Awesome.
And they can reach out to you. Great.
At all times.
You know, I love learning the stories of different folks. Everybody has a different journey, a different path, but we all want a similar destination, don't we? And
Yes,
and
absolutely.
it's anchoring and finding people that believe in the same destination. So that's what I'm taking away from today. How about you, Lisa?
Yeah, absolutely. I love listening to the stories. And Dinesh, I mean, what an impactful professional history you had leading up to where you are today.
Especially sales and relationship. That's
very
what the law
impressive.
practice is.
Very impressive. And I love how you said MBA. Nah, I'm going this direction instead.
And by the way, my PR firm did not come up with my tagline. It's lifelong relationships, lifelong plans. I came up with that myself based off of my work history.
I love it.
Love it. And
That's your passion.
It's an emulation of you. Absolutely. Well, thank you,
LWP,
Dinesh.
And the LWP model.
Well, yeah, that's the model in which you form lifelong relationships and lifetime plans.
Mhm.
So that's cool. Well, congratulations, Dinesh. I'm looking forward to continuing to watch you and your journey evolve.
Well,
Absolutely.
thank you. And thank you for letting me share my journey. It's something I love sharing. So if anybody else wants to ever talk to me about it, feel free to call.
Yeah,
Oh,
so like
that's
you called
amazing.
Jeff Palomo, someone might be calling you. You never know.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Be the change. Thank you, Dinesh. And for all of our listeners out there, thank you for joining us today. And you can get additional episodes just by going to lawyerswithpurpose.com and clicking on the Practice Success Podcast. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Practice Success Podcast. Visit www.lawyerswithpurpose.com/podcast to listen to other episodes and to subscribe. We'll see you next time.